Okay, this is your third video, and we're talking about the eating habits of bacterium. The eating habits of bacterium. Now remember, Kingdom Monera has the most diversity. In Kingdom Monera, there are producers, consumers, and decomposers. But you need to know that most of them are decomposers. Remember that. Okay, so if I were you, I would make a note card. This is what we were going to do in class. And on one side of the note card, I would put the eating habits of the bacteria that are heterotrophic. And on the other side, I would put the eating habits of the bacteria that are autotrophic. So let's do heterotrophic first. So the heterotrophic bacteria that I want to start with are called the saprophytes. Saprophytes are any organism that feed on dead matter. So they're obviously decomposers, and they're heterotrophs because they don't make their own food. They are a vital and very important creature on the earth. They recycle material from dead things back into creation so living organisms can use them. They're very, very, very important. In fact, I have a video for you that you may watch after this video, and it's about the failure of the biosphere. Now, the lady who's doing the talking is a proponent of the biosphere because she was in it for 2 years. But the biosphere was a huge failure because they didn't have the right saprophytes in there. They didn't have the decomposers that were needed to recycle things back into their environment. So the second heterotrophic bacteria group I want to talk about are the parasites. Now, parasites are different because they feed on living hosts. That means that they just absorb the nutrients that their host has already digested, because these bacteria do not have the ability to digest. So they also absorb the complex chemicals they can't make. They steal these from their host. So their host goes on living and their body goes on digesting, breaking that down into chemicals that can be usable, but the parasite absorbs those nutrients and chemicals from the host and steals them. So those are the heterotrophic bacteria I want to talk about. Now let's go over and flip your card over and write down autotrophic bacteria. So obviously, if you remember from last module, autotrophic means that they make their own food. So the first type would be those that can produce their food via photosynthesis. So photosynthesis uses energy from the sun, but their byproduct, if they're a bacteria, are not always oxygen. In plants, obviously, that's the byproduct. But with bacteria that make their own food by photosynthesis, don't always produce oxygen. So it's kind of interesting. The second way that autotrophic bacteria can make their own food is through chemosynthesis. And chemosynthesis is interesting because these bacteria can promote a chemical reaction that releases energy to make food for themselves. And so that's the way they make food for themselves. I wrote myself a note also that they convert chemicals that living things can't use into chemicals that living things can use. So they do have some byproducts that are helpful. Okay? Okay, now I want you to remember that digestion is not the same thing as metabolism. Remember, digestion, which is what we're talking about, heterotrophs and autotrophs, it's just how they get their food, okay? But digestion does not give you energy. Digestion simply breaks food down. So, in order for us to, here, let me scroll down. In order for us to